The cool thing is, no matter what you say with that accent, it sounds really awesome. Awesome. So I'm going to be talking about building an acquisition machine. Like was mentioned, right now run about 41 businesses. At any given time in a month time, we're usually acquiring 2 businesses a month. This year so far, we have done 18 acquisitions. We'll have a fund that we've closed some deals in. We've done about 8 million deals in the fund, and total deals that I've done on the acquisition side, not including the sales side, is about 26 million. All businesses that are in the kind of low end $100,000 range to the largest deal we closed last year was a $5 million deal. So targeting the small business market is where we target. And the case that I want to make to you today is that in a lot of situations, we're better off taking the capital that we would put even into our own businesses and acquiring an additional business, and not only getting the revenue and income from that business and cash flow, but finding businesses that are complementary to the companies that we own. And what I've seen is that, even in my own businesses years ago, putting $25,000 into trying a new marketing strategy 9 times out of 10 does not generate the return. And when I put out those funds into just going out and acquiring another additional cash flow for my business, even if it doesn't go perfectly, the returns just outshine that. So we're going to talk about what does it look like to build a machine that every month is able to buy businesses, or every year is able to buy a new business, because for the average small business, that changes the whole landscape of where your business will end up. If you can double the size of your business each year through an acquisition, as opposed to growing at a 10-20% rate organically. When I think about what makes us successful in the market, one of the first things is having a deal maker's mindset. So what we focus on is going out and doing deals. And what I tell people is, I don't buy businesses, I buy deals. And the business itself could be at a bad valuation or not really worth that well. But if I can structure the deal the right way, it doesn't really matter. I tell people I could buy a $100 million business and pay $1 billion, 10 times what it's worth. But if I can structure that deal where I'm paying that person $1,000 a month for the next 10,000 years, that's a win. I'm gonna get cash flow in that business. If it doesn't work, you can take the business back after 100 years, So when we're looking at deals, that's the mindset that you have to have. And it was great what Vern was mentioning, because it's so crucial that you understand that if you come into, whether it's investing in angel or buying or doing an acquisition, if you come into it with an entrepreneur's mindset, it's not gonna work out well. You've got to switch, and it's just a totally different mindset, which would be more like a Warren Buffett than it would be a Jeff Bezos. It's just 2 different ways of thinking, and when it comes to these deals, that's a crucial thing. Next thing is having a system. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my system and how we go about managing growing even businesses that are in a portfolio that large. And in some cases, these are just small businesses. And so how do you have a system in place that's gonna run those? The other thing when I talk about focus, is more that we do focus on leveraging the businesses that we have. Everything is very much balance sheet focused. So, with internet businesses in particular, it's neat because every website that we buy is not only a business that produces cash flow, it's also a media. So years ago, when I wanted to advertise my offline tanning salons, yes, that's right. That's why I have this beautiful tan. I owned 5 tanning salons at one point. Did a little roll up of some salons. But when I owned those, if I wanted attention, or wanted eyeballs, I had to go to a radio station, go to MTV, and pay for those ads. The neat thing is now the website themselves are getting the eyeballs. They're getting the traffic, and so you're able to leverage those eyeballs. Every time you're adding to your portfolio, you're also adding media. And I'll talk about a case where we had a deal where the income decreased, but the fact that we had some SEO juice, we had one deal that went down, and we were able to use that business to grow, to double another business that, you know, more than made up for it. So the focus is, how do I use deal making to not just get really great income and increase my business that way, but how do I leverage the assets that I'm buying to grow the portfolio as a whole? And then we're going to talk a little bit about my team, how I structure it, how I'm able to have, you know, I basically have 5 people that report to me, and, you know, everything else is non-employee. So deal maker mindset, you know, we don't get emotional about deals. You know, there are plenty of people that tell you you should find something you're passionate about, and that should be what you go after. When it comes to deals, I'm personally just passionate about deal making, and I'm passionate about finding the very best business for the very best deal structure that I can possibly do. We focus on deal structure, and we kind of move at a slightly uncomfortable speed. So we're always growing. It helps us to be sharp, just that we're, you know, always staying a little bit ahead. We're acquiring businesses at a rate where, you know, we're growing into the growth as we buy those businesses. But the more important thing is that we focus on deal structure, because that's where we make our money, and that's where, if it's not structured correctly, where you can lose your shirt. These things, you know, they're not always going to go perfectly, but you can protect yourself by having the right deal structure, and of course, you know, ahead of that is having the right due diligence process. Front leading with pain, and then we want to make sure that we protect ourselves from feeling pain by having diversification, and we're growing businesses where we can. So I know historically about 12% of the businesses that we buy are going to go all the way to zero. But when you're buying something at a 2 multiple, 3 multiple, you're getting a 50%, 33% to 50% return. The crucial thing there is diversification. And we look at diversification on 5 levels. We want diversification when it comes to the traffic sources. You know, I don't want all my deals to just come from Google. I want some Facebook, I want some Instagram, I want some ad, PPC. You know, we want different sources of traffic. I want the income to come from different places. So I don't want all my businesses to generate income from Amazon, in which Amazon now is generating, you can generate income 3 different ways. And I'll talk about one business in particular that we're making money a couple different ways in that business. But, you know, just Amazon has FBA, affiliate, advertising, so you can generate money a few different ways. But we want to make sure that the portfolio has some income that's generated from maybe Google AdSense, direct to consumer, maybe some Amazon, so that's diversified. If something happens to one of those, you know, it seems absolutely crazy something would happen with Amazon, but if something did, we would be protected. We want diversification as far as the demographic of the customers. So if all of the people in a particular demographic get hurt, then, or financially, or aren't spending money, then we're protected. We want also just different niches. We've got a lot of niches that we buy. But when you diversify across all those things, that creates this level of protection, because we know that we are getting paid to take a risk. You know, the reason that we're getting paid a 50% return is because we're willing to take that risk. So the goal is to build a modern day assembly line, and even in your business, what you can start to build where you start to create the systems is, you know, 15, 20 minutes a day, you're looking at a few deals, you may be talking to a potential seller, you're following up on leads, and you start to do this process just on a daily basis and move things down this assembly line where, you've got the pre-acquisition processes, which includes finding the deals, having source of deals come in, letting people know that you're in the market to buy businesses, doing the due diligence and looking at things and saying no to the great majority of them, being able to put together deal structures, raising the capital that you need, and then putting the people in place post-acquisition that are going to be able to run that business. So we want to create that in our business. Let's talk about my team. We have 3 levels to the team that run the 40 businesses in the portfolio right now. The first part of the team is the business sellers. We want to partner with them, and I'll talk a little bit just about how powerful partnering is. Every deal we do has some earnout in it, seller financing. We want that. If there's a seller and they're trying to get all their cash out on the deal, that's not a business for us. We want to partner with that seller. They know more about the business. A lot of what we're buying, the asset that we're buying, is in their head. So we want them tied in, and we really want them to get paid if the business is successful. And so we want to align those interests. Another party that's a part of our team is the people in our network. So Simon mentioned, we kind of have this network of business buyers that I've built over the last 20 years, and I partner with them and invest in them buying deals, and so that I have this owner-operator who is motivated. They're really excited for this business to make money because their money is tied into it. And one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they're the only people that are really tied equity-wise into the success of their acquisition. The seller isn't tied in because they've given them, maybe they use SBA loan, they've paid the seller all their money up front. They don't have employees that are tied in equity-wise. So we want to have as much of that as possible. And then the third piece is the agencies. We partner with agencies, and we work with them on a rev share basis. So we're sharing revenue with them. The more better they do, the more they make, everybody wins. So in all 3 of those cases, we are making sure that everybody's really aligned, and that's crucial. So part of what that takes, especially for the network, is marketing. I do a lot of marketing to ensure that I have a steady flow of potential partner operators and people that are going to run those businesses. Then I take the time and I have a course where I train them. I want them to understand all the aspects of how you find deals, how you do due diligence, how you run and grow businesses, how you use this concept of balance sheet growth and cross-marketing and all that, so that now I have a duplicate. Have a little Ace that's out there, and I'm able to invest in their deals as well. So I spend a lot of time developing that training, and then we create this culture that's fun and has everybody works remotely and travels, and so we do events where we'll all meet up in the city and do those kind of things. So that's how we do those things. So this is where we go through all the different ways we partner. And if you're gonna do deals, I think you're just remiss if you're not leveraging partnerships to the fullest. Like I mentioned, we partner with the business seller. We want them to be tied into the success of this business. We aren't going out there just writing checks for businesses. We're looking for partners that want to work with us. And we structure deals so that it's not just, they're saying they're a partner. It's we make money or we don't make money together. We train the leads up, like I mentioned. We spend a lot of money like training them and attracting them in and having them go through a course. And then we also partner with people who want to invest passively in the deal. So that lead, we'll put together the deal with the lead. We'll have somebody who's invested with us in the business, and then we go out and we manage that. And we'll also manage, like I mentioned, with SEO agencies, marketing agencies, conversion optimization agencies, and I was happy. I've met a few agency owners here. I'm always looking for more agencies. And in all these, this last part that you can't see is just we're always hiring. We're always looking for investment partners. We're always looking for agencies. So that's a big part of what we do. So let's talk about this asset class of cash flowing websites in the market that we're in right now. As has been mentioned before, right now we're in a market where global assets are they're at record highs, cash yields are at record lows. There's, even when you're looking at startups, the valuations are outrageous. There's just a lot of downside risk without a whole lot of potential upside. So when we look at these deals, what we like to focus on is a couple things. We want to buy businesses that we can get at a 2 to 3 multiple, and we want to put no more than 50% down on that business. So these are some of the different kinds of businesses that we look at, like blogs. This one of the things I love about doing businesses or acquiring businesses on the internet is there's so many random niches. This American WX is a website where there are 15,000 people that pay this membership, and they get on there and they talk about the weather. So, when you're dealing with online businesses, there are so many opportunities. And when you look at the whole world, it's like, I guess out of 7 billion, there are 15,000 that just want to chat with each other about weather-related issues. And then we do a lot of SaaS businesses. So we want to buy things that have very high profit margins. We're buying them at that 50%, no more than 50% down kind of rate. And what that creates is an opportunity for a really great return. We want things that have the potential for growth, and we're never doing things that are over that, right now about 3.5 multiple. A couple of the interesting things that are happening in this moment is that, Wall Street hasn't really securitized this industry. The multiples are relatively low considering the benefits of the asset. So it doesn't really make sense that a website asset that generates a certain amount of cash would be the same as a offline business that generates the same amount of cash, because those businesses are selling 2 to 3 multiple. So at the end of the day, if you got an offline business, it's located in Denver, I'm not going to buy that and I'm in Atlanta. It's way too far away. So the market of people that can buy that business are max in a 2-hour radius of Denver or want to move to Denver. When you're buying a internet-based business, you're able to sell it to whoever. So you have the availability of literally the whole world is able to buy that asset, which makes it a little bit more similar to something like a stock. The other thing is you're not dealing with near the number of headaches. You don't have leases and a lot of the overhead associated with an offline business. A lot of times not these. There's just a lot less of a headache. And then the final thing is just being able to run it from anywhere, and the scalability of being able to grow that business. In an offline business, if there is a location, there's just only so many people you can fit into a location. The scalability is unlimited. So there's this trend right now of being able to acquire these businesses and not having the competition from professional business buyers like private equity funds, but also we're do deals that are a little bit higher than a lot of the individuals are able or willing to go. So, from a lead gen, due diligence, deal making, and kind of operations perspective, the biggest key that we bring is a professionalism to each one of those. We're spending a lot of time, effort, money in generating potential deal flow. Because we've looked at so many deals, the way that we do due diligence is probably better than what a lot of people have done, and mainly because we're taking in information on the latest strategies that people are using, and we kind of cross market that against the deals that we are considering buying. And when it comes to deal making, leveraging a brand, I was in the last group, one guy we're going through a couple of deal structures. He's like, why would anybody do that deal structure? And, beyond just the normal things, one of the things is because we have so many great references from other sellers. We have so many proof of the fact that we've closed deals, and we're a real buyer, and we're not gonna try to trick them or anything. That brand allows us to do the deals that we're able to do. So currently, it's a very fragmented market. And for us, the mandate is I want to find deals that we can cross market in our portfolio in order to grow. And I want to find deals that have very, very high margins. One of the things I loved about what Vern talked about is we spend a lot of time looking at the top line in sales, and not as much time looking at just what is this bottom line and maximizing that margin. And for a lot of folks, when you are acquiring a $5 million business and it's only making $500,000, it seems like, okay, this is an interesting deal, but a 10% shift down in that could totally obliterate that business. So it provides a safety margin, but it also just allows us to have some really great returns. So we have businesses that literally are 70, 80, 90% profit margins. So I like finding things that have low cost and really, really great margins, with the goal of creating that asymmetric relationship between the risk that we're taking and the returns that we're going to end up getting. So when we talk about earning a minimum 30% cash on cash return, and having that 80% margin, I want to go through the typical deal structure that we'll end up doing. Typically, we're going to pay 50% down. I put 25% of that up front. So if we have a business that we're buying at a 2 multiple, and I'll run through an exact scenario, and let's just for simplicity say it's $1 million business, it's at making $500,000 a year. I want to put $250,000 down, and my goal is really to get that money back as quickly as possible. And then I'll pay the other half of that down payment after training, and that will really be from the earnings of the business. So in a lot of cases, even though we talk about 50% down, the cash on cash return is going to be based on a 25% actual out of pocket cost. And feel free, this is conversation. You guys can raise hands and stop it. Okay, yeah, no problem.
So wait, say that again. So you're putting 50% down of the deposit, which is 50%. So you're putting 25% down. And then when does the other 25% go?
I usually say it's after training in the LOI. So letter of intent is LOI. So I'll say it's after training, and don't put a specific time frame on it. Then we get into the deal and all that, and we get the contract, and I'll decide like, oh, well, it's 90, I need 90 days of training. And sometimes they're like, oh, like this is gonna take 90 days training. It's like, I'm very slow, so I need 90 days.
$500 million, you can drag it out for 90 days. There.
That's your cash flow projections based a time frame.
Yeah, so it could be, I've done on a larger deal, it'd be like, actually on a $1 million deal, I'll probably do 6 months. So we've got a deal right now where we're literally, it's that exact structure, which I didn't include here. But Blue Dot is a business where it's a $1.2 million business. We bought it with $600,000 down. We only put $300,000 at close. We released to the seller. And another neat thing we do is I actually take over the business during due diligence. So I'm earning money before the money is released to the seller.
So 300 starts before due diligence starts?
Yeah, so I'll put it in escrow.
Okay.
So I'll start making money because I'm telling the seller, listen, I've put this in escrow. So like I've put up something, you've given me nothing, even though it's not released to them. I start making money during due diligence. It's also a great, that's what I would advise all you guys to do, is do your due diligence as the owner of the business, running the business, because them sending you screenshots and that kind of thing isn't good due diligence.
So with that due diligence, so you get the LOI on this thing, it's exclusive, you put your earnest money down, you go through a basic due diligence up front, right?
Before I put the escrow down.
Right, yeah, before that goes, and then, if I'm hearing you correctly, you close the business, so now you officially take ownership, and then you do this training/due diligence period?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the first phase is just, do I like the business, doing due diligence, which is what most people do as their actual due diligence.
Yeah.
So I'm doing all of that before I even put the money in escrow. Put the money in escrow. After that, I start my due diligence, which is I'm taking over the business and running it and seeing if it still does what it's supposed to do. Then at the end of that, I'll release the other, or I'll release that first, in this case, 300. Then I'll start to run the business for those 6 months, which is the training period. And then at the end of those 6 months, which is also great because like in the Blue Dot deal, we negotiated that there wasn't any earn out during those 6 months. So we make money for the 6 months and it's gonna cover that second.
You bought Blue Dot for 600 grand?
No, 1.2,
Oh, still,
yeah.
I don't know what worked out for it.
It's been marvelous,
Okay.
simply marvelous.
So how do you deal with the issue where the vendor is saying, look, I'm turning over the keys to my car to you, and now you're taking over, and my future consideration is based on how you drive the car. If you crash it, you're screwing up
Yeah.
business.
So how do we convince them
Yeah.
to take that? We're really putting a little bit of the pressure on them to say, hey, I'm putting real money into this. Like, I'm not here to lose my money, and you're not here to lose money. And so it's a partnership. Like, you're right. Like, I probably, without you, 100% guaranteed I'm going to run it into the ground because you know everything. So that's that pitch. Let's see.
So the Blue Dot, 1.2 million, how much was their revenue and profit?
The revenue on that one is about, we were closer to a 3 multiple on that one. So it's making about 400. So it's looking like, we'll probably have about 250 of the 300, but we'll
It's 400 profit.
400 profit net.
So 2 questions. One is back to your mindset thing, which is, can you give me an example of a mind shift from an entrepreneur mindset to an investor mindset? And I know you gave the slides there a little bit, but what's a real life example?
So actually, I'm gonna talk about some examples, and then we'll show that exact thing. And if you can bring it back up again in those examples.
So when you look at the profit, how do you consider the founder's compensation? Because people usually have a control on that.
Mhm.
They'll have a real low in order to increase the profit or what. They usually don't have a high salary. The owners, the founders.
Yeah. So how
that
do
increases the profit, but realistically, as you are putting a CEO, obviously the salaries are much higher, so the profit numbers changes. So do you even consider that as part of the negotiation?
no? So their payment is a earnout. Their payment is an earnout. We're not giving them a salary for helping us. They're just getting what we agreed
No,
to.
even let's take this example. Let's say if the 400
Uh-huh.
is their profit.
Yeah.
The 400 is a profit, assuming CEO is taking only 50K. But realistically, that's a really low salary. So you
Mhm.
can say, well, the realistic salary of the CEO is 120, so the
Okay.
profit is really not 400, but actually 320.
Yeah, I mean, you can negotiate like
I mean,
that.
like,
If you just to
does
use that
those
as
type
a
of things come
negotiation,
in- Does those type of things come in a negotiation, or
Yeah.
usually you ignore it?
you can use that as a negotiation. Absolutely. I've used that as a negotiation in some deals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ace, just to clarify, so like on that deal with Blue Dot, so you said it's netting 400,000. What was the guy paying himself who was running the site?
So for most of them, they just take the profit.
Okay, so he wasn't paying himself anything,
He wasn't paying himself anything.
right? So I think that's so, right, but when you take it over, you've got somebody in there, you're paying them, right?
But so the way that we're doing it is we have a lead that's investing, and they're running the business as a partner in the deal.
Okay, so he's not taking this out, he's taking it out of cash flow.
Exactly.
For how?
Which is a unique thing. I mean, that's one of our kind of secret sauces is that the person is making money as a owner. In some cases, we might give them like a bonus, whether, it could just be like, oh, you'll get an additional 10% of cash flow, but we never do a salary.
And typically, that's not their only site or business. Typically, they're running a couple of things. So they-
Exactly. Exactly. And most of these things are, like that Blue Dot deal, the owner spent about 6 or 7 hours a week. It's just like, these, it's kind of the other secret to these assets being really amazing. Like what offline business is, generating 400 grand net. It's not big enough to have a full staff and that kind of thing, but, leveraging the internet and a couple writers. He's got another business. So 2 of our largest deals that we've closed have been that, we had a we had a $5 million business where the owner of that had another business that had grown to 50 million. And so this $5 million deal was now a nuisance.
Right.
Exactly. All right, so I want to get to some of the example deals 'cause I think that'll give you guys, talk a little bit about deal sourcing, building relationships is really, really crucial there. When it comes to due diligence, we're going to go through income expenses. We want to back check the income, and none of this stuff guarantees anything. I think when due diligence, like people are like, oh, if you do great due diligence, then every deal is going to be awesome. Like everything can check out, and then the environment changes, or Google does an update or whatever, and that's why that whole idea of having the 5 levels of diversification and having multiple deals is so crucial. So I always kind of preface when I'm talking about due diligence. It's like the best due diligence is diversification in deal structure, like before you even are too concerned. Because if you've got a really great deal structure, you're going to get your money back really quickly. A lot of that makes it a lot easier. But when it comes to income expenses, we are going to check the sources of the money to make sure. One of the places that people lie on these things is where the expenses are. How much are the expenses? So, it's one of the reasons we want to get in the business and start to run it. And like, oh, you said it took like 6 hours a week to run this, and we tried to do it. It's taking 3 people 40 hours a week. Like there's a disconnect here.
So on that note, are you doing asset purchases, not like?
100%. So if you're in Canada, then you want to do a stock sale and buy the corporation. In the U.S., it's always going to be an asset.
And transfer that into a new LLC that you create.
And then I create the LLC. Yeah.
That's in your space as far as asset structure goes.
That's in the U.S.
There's, right, for technology websites.
and for technology websites,
So-
but even for
Yeah,
offline
a lot of
businesses.
businesses are asset-based.
Yeah, that's what mine was. It was
Yeah.
an asset purchase.
Protects liability.
Yeah. So
So
even
you
for
don't have to worry
offline.
about
For the purchaser.
indemnification.
I'm trying to-
If you do asset,
So-
yeah, that's the great thing about doing an asset. If you take over their entity, then you've got those risks.
If they got lots of losses, you might wanna.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, could be valuable, but it just comes with a lot of risks.
Because
Right.
I did my purchase and it was an asset purchase. Best thing,
Yeah.
best advice I was ever given, because as soon as we closed, there's freaking lawsuits coming out
Yeah.
of the woodwork on this guy.
Yeah, a lot of times it's not even worth the losses. I would
Yeah.
give up the losses and just do a asset. Analyze, talk to the suppliers. We've seen so many different things. We had a deal that the supplier turned out to be related to the seller of the business. We had a deal the other day on the site traffic where they were using Pinterest and generating an outrageous amount of traffic, which was awesome. But then once we researched it, we realized it was against their terms and conditions, what they were doing on Pinterest. So you got to be creative. It's not this is the end all be all, follow this process. You have to be thinking. What are all the ways that this could go wrong? Some of we talked a little bit about the holdback, having performance-based deals and everybody that you work with. And then we work on growing.
Financing your earnout.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the deals you've done, how many of those deals have went 100% to the way they were written for that earnout?
So about 85% go the way that it was written, and then about 15% don't. About 5% end up being renegotiated, and then about 10% just die, go to zero. For us, it may, it'll go. The asset will go back to the seller, but for us, it goes to zero.
Will we be able to get the slides after that?
I can send slides, definitely. So let's talk about deals. This is what I like talking about. So this is a deal we closed this year. Pick a toilet. Started in 2015. It's just it's a site about toilets. So just a bunch of blog, bunch of articles about toilets. But it was making $4,000 a month when we bought it, and we did a deal structure where we bought it at $140,000, and we put $70,000 down with half up front and half after the close. On this one, it was a smaller deal, so we only got 90 days in that training period, but we put $35,000 down. What we had was a business that was also in the home space, that was a sewing site. Now, this is what I mentioned earlier, where this business was doing about $3,000 or so a month, and we had a lead that wasn't great, but also just some situations in the market. And so it went down to $1,500 a month. It was like, that kind of stinks, but it had amazing SEO. And so what we knew was like the market was really similar for this toilet site, and we could leverage links and SEO, improve the SEO of that other business, as well as some of the other sites in our portfolio. So this business was making $4,000 a month. We put $35,000 down. That $4,000 a month in the first month went up to about $6,000, and by the third month was at $9,000 a month, and kind of plateaued there. But during those 3 months, we were able to get a majority of that $35,000. That was the second portion of this. So the interesting thing about these is that it's one thing to focus on, I'm gonna pay $140,000 and get a 2.5 multiple deal and be making 40% return. The truth is, especially on these smaller deals, what you're able to negotiate is putting $35,000 in, and that's really gonna end up being your cost basis. Or max $70,000 ends up being your cost basis, and then you're building equity and earn out and all of that. That's how, so back to you. When you talk about using your balance sheet to grow the business, we use our other site as the media to advertise this site essentially, or to really leverage it to get more traffic coming to this site. So that's thinking like, instead of me having and that's a perfect example, because with the sewing site, I could have tried to figure out what can I do to increase this business back to the 3,000. So this isn't even a case of trying to grow it. It's like, man, this thing has gone down 50% earnings. What can I do to bring this business back? And I could have spent, we know how much SEO, I'm sure everybody's dealt with SEO agencies. So I could have went to an SEO agency, paid them $1,000 a month and tried to figure it out, and maybe that worked, maybe that didn't, maybe they messed it up. Who knows what would have happened? Instead of doing any of that, I take the money, I go out, I buy another business, and instantly day one, I'm making more money than I was before. And now, instead of me just being able to get this business back and me really focus on this and going, taking it from 1,500 to 3,000, I am using my balance sheet to leverage that site to make 4,000 more. And really a total of 9,000, but the increase that I got from that site on the pick a toilet side was $4,000 a month. Yo.
Sorry, one other question, kind of on the deal side.
Oh, good.
If you do an earn out with somebody, in your deal that you make with them, how do you handle the taxes on the part that you pay them for the earn out? Are you, does it go to them just with a 1099, so they're paying the taxes, or is it actually like a debt to you, so it's technically you're making money and then paying the taxes on the money you made to pay down the debt?
Yeah, typically it's just going to be you're making that money.
Got it, so
Yeah.
you pay your own taxes and then you pay them, got it.
Yeah. You can negotiate, you have to negotiate it because you don't want them to get a 1099 and be like, what the crap? But if you're considering it an earn out, and it has to be, and even for the IRS to look at it like that, it has to be in the contract that this is a consultation payment. So even if you can't just decide which way you want to do it, even if they agree, it has to be in that contract, how you write it up. And I am not an accountant, I can not give tax advice. This is Bush Scott, deal I was talking about a little bit ago. This one we paid 1.75 down and got a really great earn out. We got it at about a 3.5 multiple, which on a $5 million deal is very, very rare. And to get that little down is really rare. But it was because this owner had a different priority. His priority was, I need to focus on this $50 million deal. I need somebody who's going to come in who knows what to look for. I'm not having to babysit. I would rather have my time than potentially find somebody who's just going to pay me the cash, but it's going to be a headache to deal with. So what attracted him to selling to us was that he's like, all right, you do this all the time. Like, I don't want to babysit, even, on the back end. I don't mind taking risks. I just need to have this. I don't want this just to go to zero. Let me get somebody in place to grow it, so you can have some of that. Elite Rest. This is a really cool deal I did with somebody who I've learned a lot from. As a guru. Some of you guys may know him. He owns Niche Pursuits. His name is Spencer Hawes, and he teaches people how to grow these businesses. And one of the reasons I did this deal was because I had leads that I wanted to learn from him. And so if you look at this business, like even within it, it's not that big a deal, but it actually has 4, I only have 3 up here. But it has 4 different sources of income with this single business. So it makes money from AdSense from Google, makes money from affiliate income from Amazon. It also has an FBA store, which is fulfilled by Amazon, and it has an e-commerce business direct to consumer. So this thing is kind of, it's a media company, like I mentioned before, because it has a blog and it makes money off of advertising and all that, but it also is an e-commerce company kind of tied together. And again, kind of going back to your question as far as kind of this deal maker mindset, instead of trying to figure out how we grow this business, we're in negotiations right now to buy a mattress blog, which gets about double the traffic of this one, is an $800,000 deal that's making money just from affiliate. Well, we've actually been looking into starting Elite Rest is a pillow company, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. But we looked into, we were already looking into starting a mattress line for Elite Rest. And what we're able to do is essentially kind of bring this in, and this gives us a way to generate a lot more sales in that mattress deal. So trying to figure out, how do I do a deal that buys me forever the media that I'm gonna leverage, as opposed to going and trying to do something that's going to temporarily give me access to somebody else's audience. I wanna buy the eyeballs, I wanna buy the audience. I think that long term, it's gonna be more and more expensive to get attention. So, questions?
So on these deals,
How many employees Jeff Bezos has with Amazon, and it's like whole cities of people that are running that thing. it's just a similar thing. So yeah, like Berkshire Hathaway has See's Candy and things that have inventory and all that, but he doesn't worry about that. So his job is to run the investment. So for us, I have somebody, those three guys, which, for Elite Rest is really exciting for me because we did that deal. We're also learning a lot from this guy who's just a real expert, produces these things like clockwork. And I wanted my leads to learn from him. So he's tied into this deal on the earn out for the next 2-3 years. So my people that are in my network are getting this expertise for the next 3 years, like an MBA in how to build these e-commerce businesses. And so that's the additional value. But in addition to that, they are taking care of all of that. I have never answered a customer email for that business or dealt with any of that. But the crucial thing is how that's set up. They need to have a significant stake in the success of that business.
What were a couple of your biggest acquisition disasters? And what
Yeah. So the absolute biggest was a site called Camden, which you're familiar with. So we had a deal where I had a lead. He had done a deal. I had a teeth whitening business, and he just killed it. He did an amazing job. So he did a great job with that. Then we bought a watch company, and he did he was doing a really great job with that. The teeth whitening company was probably about $250,000, this is typically the way that I will start with somebody. Is we do a smaller deal. So the watch company was a $600,000 deal. Did a good job with that. So now we have this $1.4 million deal in Camden. And I'm like, hey, this is my star. He's killing it. But he had reached his limit. And unfortunately, we found out on Camden, which, we structured it the right way. And we did 700 or 800,000 down. And we did 400,000 at the closing, which should have just been, okay, it's 400,000. We're going to go in. It's our typical thing. It protects us from, anything. So I saw the hiccups when we got into it, and but the lead was really assuring me, like, no, like it's just some initial hiccups. We're going to be good. He had money tied in. And I think the real thing is he didn't want to lose his money. And so he's like, all right, like we got to make this thing work. And so the most unfortunate thing about that deal, and where I made a huge mistake, isn't so much the acquisition of it, was that we made that second, after the 6 months, we made that second $400,000 down. So the 400,000 was just, it shouldn't have gone out. We should either extended it or come up with another way around that, but just complete disaster because we just end up giving the business back. So the other two businesses we're able to kind of bring back, get some revenue in them, because he just kind of fell off on all three. Like once he got overwhelmed, he just literally, was out of the picture. We've got to fix it. And so,
What did Camden do?
Huh?
What did Camden do?
It's a FBA business in the sports market. Yeah. And then really those were the deals where we like lost money. And really Camden is one where we lost money. The interesting thing is in a lot of the other cases, they go to zero after a year. And typically we're getting our money back. And so we've had, even in that other, like, when I say 10% of the deals are gonna go to zero, it shouldn't be, unless it's just a disaster in the first 6 months. Like that's when something really, really went wrong. Most of the time it's gonna be after a year, if you structure the deal the right way, you're supposed to get your cash back. So you're not actually losing money, you are losing returns. But that is at 100% the Camden deal, the biggest disaster.
So where are you getting the capital for the downstrokes? And if you're raising money, what kind of structure are you using?
So we've got several different structures. In some cases, it ends up raising debt capital. And we'll raise that at 10, 12% just from investors. In some cases, we've got partners that are just passive investors that are doing the deals that I do, as well as the leads that are investing. And then we have a fund. So the fund deals are just within a fund, and we're buying a portfolio with that, which we've actually now are not going to do the fund structure anymore. We're taking that entity public. So we raised about 10 million. We only spent about 5 million, and we're not going to use the rest of the other 5 million for a lot of reasons. It's better to do these deals essentially outside of a fund structure. I can go into that if you're really interested.
This is terrific, Ace. But I would like to drill down a little bit on that fund structure whilst you still got it.
Cool.
What do you look for in portfolio diversification? There's a follow-up question there about what do you think is the total addressable market for cash flowing websites, maybe in terms of actual numbers of websites or the dollar value for cash flowing websites?
What's the what now?
The total addressable market.
Oh, just how much is out there?
Yeah.
It's so tough because it is it's a very inefficient and very, very fragmented market. But that's the benefit, is that nobody really, I can negotiate with a seller one-on-one, and they don't really know what the worth is. They don't know what the right deal structure is. But there are a lot of sites out there. I would say at any given point on the market between 0 and 5 million, there's probably a couple hundred million in deals that are available in that range at any given moment.
And what about the diversification within 40 websites? I mean, do you have a limit on the revenue that you can get from any one of those 40 within the fund? Or?
And this is one of the, especially if you're looking at a fund type of structure, one of the great things from when I'm doing deals is I can buy smaller businesses with the structure that I have set up. And it just ends up being a situation where you can diversify. Like, the size of deals is really crucial when you're diversifying. So if you and that's one of the issues when you kind of level up and you're doing like $1 million deal, and a majority, it offsets the great returns of 5 $250,000 deals. You know what I mean? So you're looking at diversification on the level of the different aspects of the deals, like I talked about, but then the size is also really important. So in that 40, the average deal size is about a quarter million that we're diversified. But I want to do larger deals. The downside is every time I do a larger deal, if BookScouter failed, that is a huge pain because so many of the other deals are it's not like we've got a portfolio of 10 $5 million deals. So that's one of the things that I'm always balancing. Is even on there's a level where the size diversification comes into play.
So how many leads, or how many, I guess, deal managers how many deals can they manage? Like, this one guy had 2, and then he went to that big one, and then it all fell apart. What does that look like for?
It's so tough. I mean, it's an individual thing. I think that was my first time that I put too much on somebody. And so that was a lesson that I had to learn. And I just have to kind of feel that person out, because I've got, I got another guy's doing 5 deals. And he's killing it, and is amazing.
Actively managing and like making sure the websites are generating the income they're supposed to, and
Yeah.
that's amazing.
What
Yeah.
percentage do they usually own at that point?
I want them to own at least 20%. But it varies. Yeah, but that's on the low end. That's the lowest that I'll go, is 20%.
So it sounds like you have a lot of agents helping you find these businesses around the world, and so what do they get paid and who's paying them?
So if a broker finds a deal, like I'll get access to most deals that come on the market pre-market. I don't like buying businesses that are on the market for the same reasons that Vern mentioned. For the seller, it's a great idea. If you're selling business 100%, you should create this auction kind of dynamic. I want the opposite. But the other thing with these businesses is, in some cases, it's easy to duplicate. And it's not to say they can take all of your business away, but they can, somebody gets a prospectus, they see what niche you're in, how you're earning money, what your sources of traffic are, what your margins are. They know everything about your business in this prospectus. And we're not talking about a burger restaurant where they have to go and set up on the same corner and pay for all this stuff, employees, da 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 da. It's just a website. So a lot of your protection is information. And so I don't buy businesses that are just being advertised on the market. Also, to get the great deals, like the BookScatter deal, like that had to be sourced. So the network that I train, the BookScatter came from that network. And if a broker brings us a deal, they want 15%. We paid him 5% on the BookScatter deal, which he was ecstatic about. It's a 26-year-old kid who went through this training, and that was like life-changing money, a couple $100,000. It's life-changing money for him. And so they're motivated to go out and hustle and bring back deals.
Right, I think there's plenty of questions here. I just want to wrap this up. This is a gift of appreciation to you, Ace, for your presentation today. Can we all give a round of applause?